If Gavin, like, he's legit smart. I don't think there's anything at all at the core other than misery, another deeply, deeply unhappy person who, you know, we should be rooting for him to get his life together. But someone who kind of externalizes everything. You know, there's nothing at the center, and so everything is about the public display. A truly wounded, screwed up person, like on a very...
Newsom, in every single interview I've seen him do, has passed the buck, even though he is the governor of this state. Yeah. He is pathetic. He's a snake. He's like...
Picture this. A governor with movie star looks, a Hollywood smile, and hair that never moves, no matter what chaos is going on around him. That's Gavin Newsom. On the surface, he shines like a polished diamond, but the closer you look, the more you realize it's all glass. Behind the perfect suits and rehearsed speeches, there's no core, no authenticity, just a man who seems more interested in playing a role than actually leading. He projects confidence, but critics describe him as hollow, a smooth-talking salesman who can turn disaster into a photo op with a smirk. And that's the problem. California, the Golden State, is burning homelessness, exploding, crime climbing, businesses closing, but Newsom acts like he's auditioning for a cologne commercial. Every word, every gesture feels scripted, like a performance crafted for the cameras rather than for the people who trusted him with power.
Remodeled Gavin Newsom of California last month.
We've chosen this. This is our decision to live in these conditions. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So we've chosen this. We've accepted this. We can sit there and say thoughts and prayers, or we can look in the mirror and say, this is the price, I guess, of whatever. Fill in the blank. Freedom? This is the price? I get freedom? Freedom from what?
Prayer? How stupid is prayer? Says Gavin Newsom. People who pray are idiots. I'm the only God here. Bow down before me. You can no longer defend yourselves.
And here's the scandalous part. When confronted with real issues, he doesn't apologize, he doesn't reflect, he just smiles wider. He's the type who can look straight into your eyes, tell a lie without breaking a sweat, and somehow make it sound like you should thank him for it. It's not leadership, it's branding. It's not about fixing problems, it's about looking good while the problems get worse. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now, let's continue. Now, let's talk about how he handles responsibility, or rather, how he dodges it. When disaster hits, you'd expect a governor to step up, take charge, and show some accountability. Not Gavin. Whenever something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault. Wildfires rage across California. He blames climate change like it's a magic shield to protect him from criticism. Homelessness spirals out of control. He shifts the responsibility onto local governments, as if he's just a bystander instead of the man in charge. In interview after interview, he has perfected the art of passing the buck. He talks a big game, but when pressed for answers, he slips out of it like oil on water.
Gavin Newsom the other day.
Did you really?
Yeah. And
what's that like? Does he smell like sulfur?
It was by phone. I was talking on the phone. It's such a weird. He smelled like that was too fast for me.
Sulfur and hair grease.
Yeah. No, but I was making fun of. I shouldn't even make fun of it because it's so tragic. But what's happened to the state and people living on the street?
And what is his non-gaslighty perspective?
He said, "Go back to Russia. You like Russia so much." I was like, actually, I'm originally from San Francisco, but I can't live there because
he really.
Critics call him a snake for a reason. He's slick, he's slimy, and he always manages to slither away from direct blame. It's as if his job isn't to solve problems, but to avoid being tied to them. What makes it worse is the way he does it with such ease. While other politicians at least stumble when lying, Newsom stays calm, collected, and even charming. His palms don't sweat, his voice doesn't shake. He delivers lies with the confidence of a salesman pitching a dream vacation while the hotel behind him is collapsing. And the people of California are left watching, wondering why the man they elected to lead is more focused on escaping responsibility than actually fixing their lives. California is supposed to be a dream, a place of opportunity, sunshine, and innovation. But under Newsom's leadership, that dream looks more like a nightmare. Homeless camps stretch across sidewalks, entire families are fleeing the state, and small businesses that once thrived are shutting their doors for good. Yet, Newsom continues to polish his image, as if photo shoots and catchy slogans can cover up the chaos. Take the water crisis. For example, in 2014, voters overwhelmingly approved a ballot measure to build more reservoirs. Billions of dollars were attached to the plan. The people gave the green light, expecting real solutions. Do you know how many reservoirs were built since then? 0. Not one.
I think a lot about Gavin Newsom, many different things about Gavin Newsom, but one thing I know for a fact about Gavin Newsom is he has the capacity to beat a lie detector test. Gavin Newsom will say anything he needs to say, and not like Biden's not like this, actually. Whatever Biden's fault, he's not like this. Like Biden would, he has like guilt. If he's lying to you, he gets twitchy. Gavin Newsom's palms don't sweat. His respiration doesn't increase. His body temperature doesn't change. Nothing changes in Gavin Newsom.
California still faces crippling droughts, and instead of solving the problem, Newsom stands at podiums preaching about progress while the taps run dry. Then there's the energy grid. Rolling blackouts have become normal in California. Solar panels, windmills, and endless promises of green energy sound nice, but try charging your car or even using a microwave without the lights going out. California, the state leading the charge into the future, is the only place where plugging in your phone feels like taking a gamble. These failures aren't small mistakes, they're systemic. And yet, instead of taking responsibility, Newsom shrugs it off and keeps selling the fantasy. To critics, it's not just failed leadership, it's deliberate negligence dressed up in slick speeches and expensive suits. And while the state buckles under real problems, the cost of simply living there has shot through the roof. California families are paying more for gas than some Americans pay for rent. Groceries, housing, electricity, it all costs more, while wages barely keep up. For the middle class, it's like drowning with no lifeline in sight. Small businesses, the backbone of local communities, have been crushed. During the pandemic, many were forced to close their doors forever, buried under restrictions and high costs. At the same time, giant corporations with the right connections, the ones flashing rainbow logos every June, walked away with tax breaks and favors. Newsom sold it as progress, but it felt more like he was picking winners and losers. And spoiler, regular people weren't the winners.
2014, voters in California overwhelmingly supported a ballot measure to support building more reservoirs in the state in order to bulk up our water infrastructure because we live in a drought-prone state. That passed in 2014. Funding was attached to it. You want to know how many reservoirs have been built since 2014? Zero. This state is an utter joke because of the people who are governing it. Gavin Newsom right now is at the top of that.
For many, California became unlivable. Families packed up and left, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The American dream in California turned into a cruel joke, where the rich could keep their mansions and everyone else was left struggling just to make rent. Critics say Newsom has perfected a dangerous skill, redistributing wealth, not from the rich to the poor, but from the working class to whoever cuts the biggest political check. And as the middle class disappears, the state is left with only two groups, the very wealthy and the very desperate. And then came the moment that exposed his hypocrisy to the entire nation, the infamous French Laundry dinner. Picture this. Californians were locked down, told they couldn't gather with family for the holidays, warned that doing so would risk lives. People canceled weddings, funerals, and birthdays, all while struggling with isolation. And what was their governor doing? He was out at one of the most exclusive, ritzy restaurants in the country, dining with lobbyists and political donors. The rules that crushed small businesses and kept families apart didn't apply to him. For regular citizens, it was masks, distance, and fear. For Newsom, it was wine, chandeliers, and expensive meals that cost more than most people's weekly paycheck. When he was caught, he brushed it off with a half apology, saying it was just a dinner with friends. But the guest list told another story. big donors, the kind of people he actually listens to. That night became a symbol, not just of arrogance, but of betrayal. It showed Californians that while they sacrificed, their leader was above the rules, living in a world of privilege. For many, it was the final straw. The French Laundry dinner wasn't just a scandal, it was proof that Gavin Newsom cared more about keeping up appearances with elites than standing with the people who put him in office. California's schools were supposed to be the pride of the state, but under Newsom, they turned into a cautionary tale. Billions of dollars poured into education, yet the results are shocking.
Exactly. Are the American people going to see that the way that you see it, or?
Well, as you know, the system in California does not include elections. I mean, it has nothing to do with what the people think. It's a machine state. It's the most corrupt out of 50. Kamala Harris was despised by most Californians, and she, was a sitting U.S. senator. Poor Dianne Feinstein, my neighbor in Washington. I don't think she was a horrible person, just for the record, but she was non compos menace, and she could have lived.
Students graduate without basic skills, struggling to read maps, to do math, to think critically. But they sure know how to organize a protest on TikTok using emojis. Critics say this isn't just poor performance, it's deliberate mismanagement. The focus shifted from preparing kids for real life to pumping them full of political slogans and trendy causes. Classrooms became stages for activism instead of places for learning. Parents watched in frustration as money disappeared into the system, while their kids came out less prepared for the world than ever before. And this isn't some minor issue. Education defines the future of a state, the future of its workforce, the future of its economy. Yet, California, the state with some of the highest taxes in the nation, is failing its children. Tucker once joked that if the goal was to create confused, entitled, screen-addicted philosophers, then mission accomplished. But behind the sarcasm is a hard truth. California's young generation is being shortchanged. While politicians like Newsom celebrate new programs and ribbon cuttings, parents see the reality. Students weighed down by debt, lacking real skills, and unable to compete in the very economy California brags about leading.
Seen is mismanagement of epic proportions, and the mere existence, and it is real, the existence of climate change should not be utilized as a talking point in order to pass the buck, in order to deflect blame, in order to refuse to take any personal responsibility for how poorly this state has been governed for several years now. I am so disgusted with these people. I mean, Newsom is the governor. He's the top dog in California.
It's a future built not on opportunity, but on disappointment. And then there's the homelessness crisis. The most visible scar on California's streets. Walk through Los Angeles or San Francisco, and you'll see tents stretching for blocks, sidewalks turned into makeshift shelters, and families forced to live in cars. Billions of dollars have been spent to solve it, yet the problem only grows worse. Newsom stands at podiums announcing new initiatives with catchy names, promising innovation and compassion. But when you dig into the results, there's nothing. No real progress, just money funneled into nonprofits that deliver slogans instead of solutions. Critics compare it to a child showing off crayon drawings, lots of color, but the figures are crying. The state's policies have created loopholes that make things even worse. Theft under $1,000 is barely punished, turning stores into open-access ATMs for looters. Videos show mobs storming malls and shops like scenes from Grand Theft Auto, while Newsom responds with excuses about inequality and systemic issues, never holding himself accountable. The tragedy is that California had the resources to fix this. It had the money, the public support, and the time. But under Newsom's leadership, billions vanished into thin air. Sidewalks became obstacle courses of despair, while residents were told progress was being made. What people see with their own eyes tells a different story. California's homelessness crisis isn't being solved, it's being managed like a public relations campaign. Law and order collapsed right alongside everything else.
I can't remember. He's been doing these podcast interviews to kind of rebrand himself as some sort of common sense guy.
I've turned it down.
Yeah, don't fall for it because it's total BS. But, he said something along the lines of, I take personal accountability. I made a big mistake by getting caught, I was at the French Laundry. It's like some ritzy, fancy restaurant during COVID after I told Californians, don't get together with family members during the holidays. It's very dangerous, whatever. He said that he was having dinner with friends. It was his friend's birthday. No. He was having dinner with his donors. So even in the context where he's pretending to take accountability,
police departments lost funding faster than a failed crypto startup, leaving cities understaffed and overwhelmed. Officers felt abandoned, morale crumbled, and crime spread like wildfire. For regular people, it meant neighborhoods once considered safe suddenly felt like open-world video games. Except this wasn't entertainment, it was their daily lives. Stores were ransacked in broad daylight, criminals walked free under new lenient laws, and the public was told to just accept it as the cost of progress. Newsom, meanwhile, stood tall with his spray tan and sharp suits, talking about social justice while ignoring the chaos his policies unleashed. Then came the wildfires. Every summer, California burned, and every summer, Newsom gave speeches on climate justice. He posed for photos on scorched earth, shaking his head as if the fires were just bad luck instead of years of poor forest management. Insurance companies fled the state, homeowners were left without coverage, and still, the governor's response was to blame everyone else, sometimes even Texas. It was like watching the captain of the Titanic audition to run another cruise line, pretending the iceberg never happened. California's disasters weren't just natural, they were made worse by failed leadership. And each time, instead of owning up, Newsom found a new camera, a new stage, and a new excuse, while the state he was supposed to protect kept sinking deeper into crisis. And while California was sinking, Newsom wasn't just clinging to power, he was setting his sights even higher. He began positioning himself as a national figure, speaking out on issues in other states, even attacking governors like Ron DeSantis. He framed himself as a defender of progressive values, but critics saw something else, a man trying to export California's failures to the entire country. Imagine it rolling blackouts, sky-high gas prices, exploding homelessness, and collapsing schools, all wrapped up and shipped to Washington as if it were some kind of gift. One commentator joked that if Newsom ever ran for president, his slogan should be, "Make America California Again." And it didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a warning. The idea of Newsom in the White House was painted as absurd, like handing the keys of a burning car to the guy who lit the match. His vision wasn't leadership. It was theater hashtags, slogans, and slick speeches packaged as progress. Behind the curtain, Californians were paying more at the pump than some Americans pay for rent, watching their middle class disappear while he grinned for cameras. For critics, the thought of his style of governance spreading nationwide was terrifying. California had become a cautionary tale, and putting its architect in charge of America was like inviting disaster to dinner and paying for the wine he'd pick out. That's the heart of the criticism. Gavin Newsom doesn't lead, he performs. Every speech, every press conference looks like an audition. He plays the role of a modern leader, but behind the lights and cameras, California keeps falling apart. He promises equity, but division grows. He talks about unity, but his policies drive people away. He sells hope, but delivers gridlock. During lockdowns, Californians were forced to stay home, mask up, and cancel family gatherings, while Newsom dined with donors at the French Laundry. He told people to sacrifice, then lived by a different set of rules. When called out, he twisted the story claiming accountability, but still lying about who he was with. It was never about owning his mistakes. It was about spinning them into something else. Even his wildfire responses became photo ops. Even his homelessness plans became slogans. Critics argue that if speeches and hashtags could solve problems, California would be a utopia by now. Instead, people paid more for gas than groceries, businesses collapsed, and families fled the state in waves. The real scandal isn't just one bad decision, it's the pattern. A governor who looks the part, talks the part, but never delivers. A politician who turned California into a cautionary tale dressed up as a success story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one. While the French Laundry scandal and his polished press events grabbed headlines, the deeper truth was even more damning. Gavin Newsom built his career on style over substance, and by the time reality caught up, Californians were already paying the price. The middle class was vanishing, swallowed by insane housing costs, endless taxes, and jobs that couldn't keep up. Families who had lived in the state for generations were packing up and leaving, becoming California's #1 export. Meanwhile, Newsom doubled down on branding himself as the future of the Democratic Party. His hair flawless, his speeches rehearsed, his confidence unshaken, he carried himself like a man convinced he'd cracked the code to leadership. But critics saw through it. They pointed out that when your greatest achievement is exporting disillusioned families to other states, you don't deserve a promotion to the White House. California wasn't just struggling, it was becoming a warning sign for the rest of the country. Energy failures, water shortages, homelessness, crime, hypocrisy. Every issue was spun into a story that made Newsom look heroic, while the people living there knew the truth. The gloss was cracking, the illusion breaking, and behind it was nothing but broken promises and failed policies. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.